Global warming. Have you walked outside recently and said, "Oh my goodness, this is ridiculously hot"? I'm sure we all have been there. Especially with this last week's heat wave that we've all been feeling. That is global warming. And scientists are saying it's only going to progressively get worse. Global warming is a scientific fact, and one of the major causes is from human activities, such as deforestation and the burning of fossil fuels. But what's more important is how it affects our everyday to-day lives. Global warming affects weather patterns, such as hurricanes getting stronger and stronger by the year, to things like prices at the grocery store. Our day-to-day lives are affected by global warming. So what is global warming and what causes it? By definition, global warming is the rising surface temperature on average, mostly caused by the entrapment of greenhouse gases such as CO2. Here we have a diagram showing exactly the greenhouse effect. So what happens is the solar radiation enters our atmosphere, but the CO2, the carbon dioxide, it acts as a blanket. So the solar radiation comes into our atmosphere, but since the blanket is over it, it can no longer escape our atmosphere, and so it starts to build, and the temperature starts to rise. Now that we have defined global warming, let's shift our focus onto two major causes. That would be deforestation and the burning of fossil fuels. Here's an example of deforestation that's happening in the Amazon on a major scale. What exactly is deforestation, you might ask? By definition, deforestation is the clearing or removal of forests, often for other land uses such as agricultural, logging, or urbanization. So how does deforestation lead to higher temperatures? Well, trees breathe in CO2 and they breathe out oxygen. So once we start getting rid of trees, we are left without something that takes CO2 out of our environment and gives us something beneficial like oxygen. So the more trees that are cut down, the more CO2 is left in the atmosphere. Even if you think that locally, oh, my forest isn't being cut down, or my tree in the backyard isn't being cut down, I won't be affected by it. When you see things like this going on in the world, you will feel it. Thousands of trees, millions of trees are being cut down. All of these take in CO2 and produce oxygen. According to the scholarly journal of study of global warming management in Rigveda and Indian constitution, the more trees that are cut down, the less carbon dioxide is taken in by the trees and turned into oxygen, resulting in more greenhouse gases that continue to warm up the planet, end quote. Now, what is burning fossil fuels? Well, here we have an example of a power plant releasing a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere. Not only CO2, but it's it's polluted air for us to breathe. Burning fossil fuels is the process of combusting coal, oil, or natural gas to release energy for various uses. One of the major things that burn fossil fuels would be our daily driving, our cars, power plants, things of that sort. Now, according to the American Geoscience Institute, the last 10 years have been the hottest since the early 2000s, with a prediction that global temperatures are only going to increase drastically in the coming century. So here we have a graph showing starting from 1980 over on the blue, and this would be the last 10 years starting here. You'd have to be blind not to see that the data shows a major increase in the last 10 years in rising temperatures. This is only projected to go up. Now, logically speaking, we can assume that if our surface temperature has gone up, then we could also assume that our waters and our oceans, our seas, our lakes, our rivers, those temperatures are also going up. Now, rising ocean temperatures play a vital role in our food sources and marine life and freshwater life. Most importantly, we're going to talk about zooplankton and phytoplankton. So, exactly how does rising sea temperatures affect zooplankton and phytoplankton? Rising ocean temperatures significantly impact zooplankton, phytoplankton by altering their growth rates and their reproductive success. Their metabolism and their bodies become smaller, it's harder for them to reproduce, and they start to die out. These changes can lead to disruptions in marine food webs and overall ecosystem instability. They also start to migrate to colder waters, which leaves a gap of a food source. Now, how does this affect our food? Zooplankton and phytoplankton are at the bottom of the food chain. So, let's say this lobster eats, this is phytoplankton, the lobster eats the phytoplankton, a bigger fish eats the lobster, the sea lion eats the fish, and the polar bear eats the sea lion. Now, you can imagine if you was to take out the bottom of the food chain, what would happen? It would probably topple. So you take this out and the lobster has no food source. So now the fish have no food source because the lobster has died out. And now the sea lion can't eat because the fish have died out. And now the polar bear is dying because he doesn't have any sea lions to eat. So you can imagine how catastrophic that could be. According to the scholarly journal on impacts of a global warming on phytoplankton and zooplankton dynamics, the increase in global temperatures have shown a decrease in zooplankton and phytoplankton. This is the food source for most marine life and freshwater fish. If zooplankton were to be removed from the food chain, it would be catastrophic. End quote. Now, global warming is a result of human greed and honestly ignorance. In conclusion, if we don't take a hard look at the facts that were presented here today, we will all be looking like this man here soon, a man dying from extreme heat. Is that the life that you want? Global warming is a real issue and a real threat and requires urgent attention.